nation, and the dogs seem to love the show. 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Amongst our guests, Gary Castro.
Unbelievable. So, we can. Good morning. It's Saturday, October 15th.
So 8 and 11 o'clock tonight. Hope everyone's going to be watching. And Pete, I know you like to go to the clubs on Saturday.
In case you didn't know. So we're going to take a look at some photos here. Photos tell the story. This is what comes up on my phone every morning. And I have, the widgets. Well, this is widgets, an expanded view of widgets. This is the Boca Inlet right there. Condominium. There's Boca Beaches. And you take your boat and you come right around in here and you go under that bridge and then right through here. That's the Bridge Hotel, which they now call Whitestone. Fairmont built it. Don Wilson. He's not. I had coffee with him every morning for years, for lots of years. Like 10, 12, 15, something like that. I lost count. It's just every day at Denny's, we just sit in there and talk about current events. And he built that with Danilo, who's a developer. I don't know if Danilo is still with us. But, that's the big Boca, Lake Boca. And let's see, right over, it's off the picture, would be the Boca Hotel. And if you look off in the distance, I'm right here. In this, on the other side of the golf course, on that side of the golf course right there. How about that? I wasn't planning on taking you through that pictorial. Yeah. So my latest toy. See if I can present this in a. So here's the first thing you got to do is start off with some nice glassware. Okay. The mission here is make really good iced tea for Maryland. So I have these 1 liter Pyrex bottles with the screw caps, which is amazing how they can put form the glass. Oops. So another picture, you see the caps. It's amazing. And this screws right on the top of the bottle. And the machines put very hot machines, apparently, when you're dealing with molten glass. So I've got 6 of those. That's a mistake. This is attempted. This is boiling water. Oh, there it is. That's boiling water. That's water not boiling. It's getting ready to boil in that one. My Zapoli kettle, which is amazing on Amazon. It'll boil 1.7 liters in around 5 minutes, let's say. So then I take the boiling water and I put it in this gadget, which this is a hot plate with a stir. So this is set at 300. I'm trying to point out the stuff on here. Let's put that there. Whoops. Yeah. So this right now, if you look at this, 6 hours. Oops. Whoa. We got a lot of news to cover. So let's go back here. Yeah, expanded view. So 6 hours. It's set for 150 degrees centigrade Celsius. I think they want to use Celsius after the name of the chemist that came up with the scale Celsius. 0 degrees is freezing, and 100 degrees is boiling. So 0 to 100. 0 is freezing ice, water, and 100 degrees Celsius is that's boil, and 0 is freeze. So this is 150 degrees Celsius. So let's go back. So 0 degrees Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. The Fahrenheit scale is a little oddball because water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, you know what the heck? Celsius was my kind of guy. Ice freezes at 0 degrees centigrade Celsius, and it boils at 100 degrees Celsius. This is 150 degrees Celsius, which is hot. You know, it's so 100 degrees on here would be 212. So this is like 275 degrees. Anyway, this is hotter than 100. 100 is boiling. This is 150 on the for 6 hours, and the RPM of the twirler. There you can see it. Oh, there you go. See, there's a video of it. Let's do that again. Here we go. Watch. There you go. Can I stop it? I think I can. There it is. You see? Now, underneath the hot plate is a very strong permanent magnet. Inside this little gadget here, it looks like a football, is a strong permanent magnet. So, you know, South Pole, North Pole, South Pole, North Pole. So it, the device underneath spins, that doodad spins, and it twirls the water, which is nice. That's a still image, a photograph, and there's a little video. Shows you what that guy looks like. That's a 4-liter tall form beaker. 4-liter. So I filled it up to 3 liters. See, there's 150. So right here, I got some. What I do is I break. You know, the tea is not in bags; it's free-form tea. There you go. You can see it spinning away, and all the different. Maryland has some special kinds of teas, which have those particles in it. I can pause it. There you go. So you got all kinds of different things. You get the real little fine stuff is chopped up tea, and then you got all bark chips, all kinds of stuff. And you see, there's almost like a cyclone. So we can get up a little higher. Come on, Jimmy. There you go. So you can see how it the water depresses, and you got they're dancing in the middle. It's funny. It's amazing with the iPhone camera video. So there's another image that I probably turned down the speed. That's a guess. But you can see all the garbage in there. Now that came out of a bag. The stuff comes from London. This weird stuff. So I open up 2 or 3 bags of that, and then the rest is I got some early gray tea in there. There you go. So that's what happens. So that thing. Now remember, I had the boiling water. I don't boil the water on this because it'll take forever. This is not designed to. It's designed to keep something at a specific temperature. So I have the kettle right next to this. So that's 1.7 liters. Pour that in here, and then I pour in. Then I boil up another 1.7 liters. Put it in there, so that it comes right up to the 3-liter mark. So I can keep track of evaporation. All right, so that turned out better than I thought. I like the way that video looks. That's an iPhone camera. There's the little twirler. I'll have to look up the proper name for that spin magnet. I got it on Amazon. The flat ones, click. Seems like everything, so if you have that, so it's, you see, there's actually like a tornado kind of a look up at the top. And you can see all those little things mixing around. It makes the tea have a special flavor that Marilyn likes, and of course, I should have that that bag sitting next to me. So it's equipment. So what this is, moving right along into some interesting news, but I clipped out some frames out of Fox Business Channel, and this X-Wing company called X-Wing. They've been working on this. This is a Cessna, plane with a single engine up here. Well, he's napping. He's got his eyes closed. He was just blinking when I snapped it. Anyway, X-Wing has developed a self-driving plane. So it's got a self-pilot. It's a computer pilot. And it's really, autonomous flight. Now they're just they actually have a pilot in there while the plane is flying itself. But the computer is actually taken over. It took off the flight. It actually did the takeoff of the flight and all the course corrections and getting up to the proper altitude. It communicates with a computer-generated voice when it calls, the control center, and it checks in with its wing tail number and all that kind of stuff. And they've filed a flight plan in advance, and you can do that electronically, which they did. And then you go out, I forget what the direction is of the takeoff, but let's just say it's takeoff on runway N15, N like Nancy, 15. So that would mean the runway is actually at an angle of north 15 degrees. So if you ever wonder what's the nomenclature of the runways, it's the direction that the runway is pointed at with a northeast southwest indication on it. Actually, they only need the number because 0 degrees is, I don't think they have runway 0. They might if the runway is paved due north. Then it's be N0 or just 0 to a flight planner or a pilot. If you say head 15 degrees, you really don't have to say north. So they do probably because it's just another way of telling who you're talking to that you're going north, son. So, but you really don't need to say north because 10 degrees, your heading is 10 degrees. It's obvious that it's north because 0 is straight north, and 10 degrees would be a little, east of north. 90 degrees would be, east. Okay. 180 degrees would be south. 270 degrees would be west. Set your flight at 270 degrees at 30,000 feet. That means climb up to 30,000 feet and head west 270 degrees. Anyway, but the computer is doing all that, because it knows how to respond. A little sip of my coffee here this morning. Good morning. So it's very cool. So this is, LiDAR. It's got these two cameras, and this is radar. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sensors on both sides of the wings. This is a bar that goes from the fuselage up to the wing on the left side of the aircraft, the Cessna. So this is like, let's turn down this guy. He's making too much noise. Let's see what's going on here. I thought maybe I recorded that. This is actually the control center for the airplane. So there's a I'll call him a flight engineer that's sitting in a terminal location somewhere. Doesn't have to be at the airport. It could be anywhere. It could be up in my apartment. So it's got screens and keyboards, and he's on the phone, and it can, you can see, the direction where the airplane is going, and he's basically observing he's listening to whatever communications are going on between, the tower and the aircraft. And, the tower is talking to a computer. They say in 2025, that plane is going to be autonomous. And it depends, how successful these flights are. Computers don't go to sleep. They don't fall asleep because they've been overworked. Computers can work 24/7, land the plane, fuel it up, take it back off. You got FAA regulations. The pilot can't fly more than 10 hours a day, and then he has to have a day off. Or whatever the requirements are. But they have all that equipment connected to a Cessna single-engine plane that's 20 years or so old, but it's in perfect condition. And that kind of technology you could put on ships. That's why they have a picture of the. So the ships are going in and out of a port, a harbor. This all can be computer controlled. You don't need a captain. Now the captain could be, floating around watching stuff. You can still have a captain. He doesn't need to be on the controls. And there are sensors and, the observation of weather patterns and all this stuff. Whether it's a pilot of an airplane or a ship, the computer can see all the sensor results simultaneously. Whereas a human pilot, he has to look over here and say, what's, and then he looks over there and he says, what's going on over there? And, because they got all these displays lined up on a ship, and they're not exactly in front of you if you're not in front of it. Now, you may, walk over there and see what's going on and compute it. So, and controlling these computer, this is a fixed wing, and it's got these things that are on a drone. So you got a drone kind of a vehicle with with it's got 3 people in it. Or legs are kind of skinny. Maybe they're dummies. It could be a test flight. Okay, but even though there's no one inside there, if it goes down, it crashes into a building or heavily populated street below, sidewalks and stuff. So it's very important that these things are checked out real good, because you can't have them falling out of the sky in a heavily populated city where it would injure people below, or a $500 million building or less. Some of those buildings look pretty trashy. Yeah, there's a snapshot I just took this morning. Remind us of the date. And Saturday it is. So let's see. So that's all my pictures of my new little kitchen device, which is a stirring thing. It doesn't do high viscous liquids. You wouldn't want to do that. See, oh, there you go. All I do is touch the picture, and the video pops up in a little tiny. Yeah, very nice. We don't want to delete it. So, but it makes, it it runs at about, if I've got this thing set at 150 degrees Celsius, I have a little, I think it's in the, yeah, there it is. My knuckle hit that one. You see this gadget right here? Right on this side? That's a little handheld thing that you aim it at, and it will tell you the external temperature of anything you shoot at. I can shoot at the air conditioning vent. And with a 70-degree apartment, the air from the air conditioner comes out of the vent at 55 degrees. According to my fancy schmancy. I mean, that's what an air conditioning engineer would run around. Yeah, and he runs around and takes pictures of, it's actually taking an image and converting it into temperature. It's amazing. The handheld thing costs $19.95 on Amazon. I mean, it is. I mean, it used to be, like a $350 device, 15 years ago. Now it's 1995, made in China, and they make a billion of them. There's a happy picture of. I got 3 children and 2 grandchildren in that picture, and Marilyn, happy Marilyn. She's and we're in table 42. There it is, table 42. There's my clean bottles, and there's distilled water. Oh, I meant to tell you, no tap water. It's got all kinds of, the municipalities are breaking their tomatoes trying to come up with clean tap water, that they pump out of the wells or whatever. But, the sewer treatment plants that are located, near these artesian wells is processing all the sewage. And sewage is, not a fun thing. You do not want to fall into a tub of sewage because when you flush your toilet, it ends up eventually in that sewer treatment plant. The piping underneath, I mean, it's amazing. It's mostly gravity fed. And then they have what is known as lift stations, where it lifts the sewage up and then drops it in another pipe in front of it, which is then at an angle, and it gravity feeds, along the way to the sewer treatment plant. But all these, if you ever hear of a lift station, that's where the sewage gets, or it could be canal water, if it's like stormwater drainage. But if it's connected in the sewer lines, all these buildings in the city are connected with sewer lines and lift stations, and it all gets fed out into, the end of the end of the earth in the city, which 20 years later isn't the end of the earth. Everything's all built up around the sewer treatment plant, which has not such a nice odor. But that sewage, it gets processed in chemicals, and, and they mix it and they blend it and they mix it with the chlorine kind of chemistry, to break down the bacteria, to kill the bacteria and all this stuff. And then once it's done being processed, it moves it into another one of these big things that looks like a storage cylinder for jet fuel. I mean, it's like 100 feet in diameter. And they may have 5 or 6 of these things stationed around the sewer treatment plant where the water, the purified water, that's in quotation marks, moves over to one of these other tanks, and it has a special bottom on it, sand and different densities of gravel, and the water just, gravity seeps down into the aquifer, and that's how the water gets returned into the aquifer. So a company like Spectrum Laboratories would go out there. I know Spectrum pretty well because I know Lyle Johnson, and he owns it. He's a chemical engineer. I'm a chemistry graduate, so we talk the same language, so to speak. He does it every day. I do it every time I talk to Lyle. There is a difference. Anyway, his job is he's hired by municipalities, not the Boca municipality. That's not why I brought it up. But another company or a company like Spectrum would be hired by municipalities, required by law, to go 1,000 feet away from the sewer treatment plant, go into the canals, um, and draw water out of all the canal systems that surround the sewer treatment plant. And they'd plot it on a map and they'd process the sample, for heavy metals, like mercury and lead and all that kinds of stuff, and other chemical items like benzene and, carbon tetrafluoride. Carbon tetrafluoride, was used by the dry cleaning industry to clean your clothing. So it's a washing. They put it in a washing machine with carbon tetrafluoride in it, and it cleans your sport coat or whatever. They don't wash it in water because it would shrink or something. When you have a bath of CCl4, it's a carbon atom with 4 chlorines around it. That's why it's CCl4. So you got a carbon atom and you got 4 chlorine. And then you got carbon, fluorocarbon, where you got your nucleus, and then you've got of the 4 places on the carbon, you got chlorine, fluorine, and fluorine. So they mix it up so it has carbon and fluorine around the carbon atom. And that's what they use, because with too much chlorine, it's too poisonous, and you can't get rid of the chlorine smell. Fluorine doesn't have that kind of an odor, so when it's added to the atoms, this is done in a chemistry factory, and then they ship it in trucks and they deliver it in sealed containers with warning labels on it and so forth, because they're not allowed to dump that out. There's a habit of, let's say, old-fashioned dry cleaners would dump the used chlorofluorohydrocarbons. They dump it in, out the back door. You go into, and of course, no, because that hits the aquifer, and it poisons the aquifer with the chlorine and fluorine. That's not good for you. It's one thing to clean your sport coat. It's another thing to be drinking it. So because you got all this stuff going on, and you're never sure about how good they, these guys can, and how the community behaves or misbehaves with which it, pours stuff into the soil. So when you got buildings being built, and they have, a variety of different items that they, chemistry items, that solvents and all that, benzene. They've got, what do you call it, gasoline and diesel fuel powering, this all the mechanical equipment that's running around to, dig holes and, backhoes and stuff that's going on around in the backyard. I might even have some pictures of that. Let's, because that's happening right out my back door. And of course they used to provide the money to build these things, which is, yeah, see, there's the twirler. Uh, I have one that's shaped like a football. That's a more traditional, it's a octagonal thing. It's magnetic. Let's see if I can see. Yeah, this is it. So here's a wide angle view of what's going on in my backyard. And if you look over here, darks. It's sunset. So see, they're building a building, and this everyone's home. The site, you look around, you don't see any guys with orange jackets on or yellow. They're getting ready to put all the piping and stuff that's inside of the slab. And this is the first floor of the residential part of the structure. Down below is the parking garage. So they didn't have to deal with all this stuff. It was a lot less. It was just some pipes to feed the ceiling lights, and there's not much. Oh, and penetrations for the sprinkler system. So there is, you got water systems and electrical systems that are, embedded in the floors and ceilings of, this is the ceiling for this, but it's the floor for the guy walking on top. So you got a ceiling and a floor, and it's the same slab, and those slabs are 8 inches thick with 3,000 psi concrete. 3,000 psi concrete. 3,000 means could be 4,000. Generally, I think it's 3,000, and that means that if you have a square inch of that cement, that concrete, when it's dried and seasoned for a couple of months, you put a device on it that puts pressure on that sample of the cement, and they take samples of all the floors. I mean, you got watchdogs on everything, so they're watching the PSI. They take samples out of the trucks, out of the cement truck, and they put it in a bottle container, a paper container, with and it goes to the laboratory to test for consistency, honeycombing. They'll break it open after they do the PSI test. It's probably a separate cylinder, but they'll bust it open and they'll see if the aggregate is the right size and quantity. Because aggregate is like rocks, so they add rocks to the concrete, and cement is an element of concrete. It's like the glue. But concrete is the mixture of the cement and the aggregate. And it mixes in the truck. The cement factory, makes all these preparations and dumps it into the truck, which holds 9 cubic yards of concrete. 9 cubic yards. That's 9 times 9 times 9, which would be the number of, square feet. You can calculate gallons and all that stuff if you wanted to. Anyway. I poured concrete in my house at 384, my 384 house in Old Floresta, and I had a swale in my driveway, and I had a circular driveway that sweeped around the front of the house. So you can come in one side or you can come in the other side. And if you came in this way and you parked right in the middle, then the front door of the house, and then you keep on driving, and it goes, from the property onto floor, not a terrace, the street. So we had these swales. And the swale is, it's like runs all the way down the street. It's like a ditch, but it doesn't run anywhere. It's not running water. It's just standing water. Well, these developers, they just follow the swell when they pour the cement. And, it saves them 5 yards of concrete, basically, per driveway. I have 2 driveways because I have a circular thing. I have 2, penetrations into the street. So we own the house, and it had 2 swells. Of course, when it rains, the swells fill up. And the water sits there, and it gets all nasty. You get botanicals that grow in that standing water, which is like hot, and gets slimy with algae and all kinds of other living things, and of course other little creatures that might decide to take a swim in there. So I got 2 swales, and you splash into the swale. And I said, Marilyn, I'm getting rid of the swales. The city has changed the building code, so the swale of a driveway, you don't have to follow it with the driveway material. You're allowed to go at a grade from, the high point of your driveway, assuming you have a high point, to the street. And you don't have to follow the swale, line. So I hired a contractor, friend of mine, sort of business associate friend, sort of. Actually, it's the brother of someone I know well. Sat on the board of an insurance company with this guy, and his brother would do contracting jobs. He's good. He's very good. I watched him build a house across the street from me, diagonally, and it was a complex house, big house, 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. Maybe 7,000 square feet, and all kinds of angles and rocks and different materials. And he did it, in high quality materials because it's a couple $1 million house at cost. So that's a lot of materials. He built it, Took him a year, and he built, or 6 months or 9 months, I forget the time. But he built it, and I watched it because every day I'd come and go. I'd see the house. Everyday stages of, I walk over there and talk to Mike. Mike Proud was his name, and I'd say, "Hey, Mike, I want to fill in these swells. So, can you come over here and do that for me? It's not a big job. Just need to, put some forming brackets on each side of each street penetration, and then he got an air hammer, and he busted up the cement that was part of the swale and just turned those rocks over. And then, so it's got this curve. So if you're going to have it come straight, so then you have a straight, and then this part underneath. So you're basically filling up the swale with cement, bottom line. And you break up what's underneath so that this thing is not like floating on there. It's the driveway underneath the swale, that's part of the swale today, gets, knocked up with an air hammer and turned over. So there's all kinds of rugged surfaces. So when you pour the cement, to fill up the swale with cement, with concrete, using the wrong word. Cement is an ingredient of concrete. Concrete is the mixture of cement, water, some minerals, and aggregate, stone. So I said, let's do 3,000 psi cement's good enough for that, right? He said, yeah. So now you have to calculate how many yards, because when you call the cement company, you got to say, hey, I need 8 yards. So someone has to do that calculation. So, well, Jimmy being a math student, I figured it out. Mike Prout went to Rick Prout and said, here's the dimensions of Jimmy's driveway. He's got 2 penetrations, two swales he's filling up with concrete. And Rick, I need to know how many yards of concrete to order. So we got to get that figure in cubic yards. So Rick did his calculation. I did my calculation. I said, okay, so I calculate at 11 and a half yards. He said, that's exactly the number that Rick came out with. I said, terrific. Yeah. He said, how do you do that? And I said, well, it's not very difficult. You just have to, you got length, width, and height, and you got, you've got your measurements, and then, you've got a swale, so it's not a even bottom. You've got to calculate for that. So, yeah, came up with about 5.5 yards per swale. 5.5 yards over here and 5.5 yards over there. It's 11 yards. So truck is, so you need 2 6-yard trucks or 1.5 9-yard trucks. The big trucks that that pour these floors for these big buildings like this one here, they're all 9-yard trucks. To do a little job like filling in my swales, the truck will pull up and it could be a 6-yard truck, and then a second truck shows up with another to do the other swale. I forget how that went. But you don't want to pour it and then wait. So either 2 trucks, in any event, there's 2 trucks, because the largest trucks they had at the time, I think it's pretty much the same today, they're 9-yard trucks. And so I need a truck and a little bit. And I don't think they can squeeze 11 yards in a truck. They, who knows, maybe they build it up a little bit more than normal to get the 11 yards in there, since it's a small job, and the guy supervising the pour will be right there. Okay. So we learned about my driveway, and I'm watching this 200 and something units, 3 million each residence is going to be about 3 or 4 million. That's a pretty expensive condo. This is the edge of the Alina, Alina, Alina. So that's built and sold. Everyone's in it, I think. It was 80% occupied. It's probably 90% now, maybe more. It may be fully sold out. I actually don't know, but it's sold out. So now they're building another one. This phase 2 of the thing. They bought all this property that sits right on the edge, the western edge of the golf course of the Boca Raton Resort, which is right there. That's the 24-story tower, something like that. Marilyn and I got married out in the gardens, in the cloister area of the Boca Hotel, coming in this way. And then had our honeymoon thing over on the, you take a little boat over to the beach club. So we stayed at the Boca Beach Club for, a week or 2 weeks, whatever. Well, take a little, about 2 weeks. Boy, did we get sunburnt. Ooh, we were out in there a little too long, and, happy married and all this stuff, and drinking margaritas or whatever. And I tell you what, the sun is, even though you're living down here in Florida for years, You don't have your shirt off all the time. Oh, God. I looked like a lobster. So I had to stay out of the sun for like 3 days because I was just fried. Marilyn is a Native American Indian, so her skin is capable of handling a little more sunlight than Jimmy, who's a Swedish, dramatic Swedish kind of a guy. Designed to wear a multi-layer clothing, not running around without a shirt, when you're 34 years old. Excuse me, a little sip of coffee, freshly made, with my Keurig. And the coffee is Bustelo. It's really quite good. All right, so that's what's going on in my backyard. So I'm watching them. They got 3 cranes. But I thought was kind of amazing that they have 3 cranes on that job. I guess it's so long that the 2 cranes won't do it. So they have a triangulation of 3 cranes, which surprised me. They start off with 1 and then they added 2 more. I mean, it's all in the plan because when they have those cranes, they got to dig about a 60-yard hole, rectangular hole. And it has one of those beams carefully set. They got a level on, and they go around all 4 ways around that. But they bury a half of one of those. They have one of those and they cut it in half. And the side that's facing up is the bolt holes for all the next, 10 or 15 sections that get screwed together, like an erector set. And so they have to set the one that holds everything up, in 60 yards of concrete. And then they pour that, and they'll have to let it sit for 2 weeks, and then they can assemble the crane on it. And so all those things, and the crane pieces can either be, become part of the building. They just, it's about, 2.5, 3 foot square. So it's a big, it's a big, big piece of iron work, with some, slats, and you can see with a crane. You zoom in on a crane. Let's go to this one. You see? Now, right. Look at that, the magic of. So right in the bottom here, you can see my thing. Right below here, they dug a big ditch, and they cut one of these in half, and they put it in the, in the ground, and then they shored up with 2x4s, and 2x4s, nails, screws, whatever, to make sure that this stays perfectly steady. And they drop it in the hole before the cement, and they get it all set up, and all the plywood is attached to this with screws and nails and stakes and whatever, and that is set exactly straight up and down. You don't want one of these cranes that are angled like this. And of course, so this bottom edge here, where all the bolts are to connect to see, here's 2 pieces that come together. Let's see. Yeah, see, here's a section. You see how they come, see how they're pieces. And see, this is the ladder for the guy to, and you can see this is a surrounding thing. You can't really see the detail of that. So that when he's climbing up this ladder, he's encased in the grid work, so that if he falls off the stairs, he's not going to fall out because this goes up a couple 100 feet. Anyway, but you can see how they're all sections. This is the top piece. So you can see that, you can just imagine. So this is, you see, they got places for bolts, because then they set this thing on, and then, they got these guys that climb around this thing. They're attached with wires and everything, so if they fall, they get caught by wires. And they bolt, this thing on top of, all four ways around. But anyway, so just imagine this. They cut it in half, and they set it. So here is this section. So they cut it in half, and this part goes in the ground. And all these bolt openings, are, because you got stuff, see how you got stuff crisscrossing? So these four sections of vertical ironwork are held stationary with all these cross beams. Anyway, so they cut that all in half. There's from here to here. So they cut it right there. And all this gets buried in the cement. Well, in the hole. And then they attach wood and everything back and forth to make sure this thing doesn't move when the cement is being poured. The concrete keeps saying that. So when the concrete is being poured, which is a mixture of aggregate, cement, water, and minerals, that gets set. An engineer comes out and makes sure that sucker is level, because otherwise you got a crane that's tilted, and you can't do that. They can straighten it out with some big washers, that would still be structurally acceptable. But you want to have that straight up and down. When I took the picture, I wasn't straight up and down. You see, this is at an angle. But if you look at it that way, it looks okay. You look at it this way, say, Jimmy was tilted. It could have been a little parallax, but the edge of that building is pretty square, and the edge of that is pretty square. So anyway, so that's what the the foundation component is. That's buried right there, in the corner of the building. And then this thing is set in there, and guess what? They don't lift it out. that is there forever. Now they unscrew the piece, so then you got this. So then it becomes part of the floor or a patio. Someone's underneath or they have it in such a corner where there might be an emergency generator that would sit on that, because you got a lot of cement there, a lot of concrete. Sorry, and 60 yards at least, 60 to 80 yards, depending on what kind of dirt it's buried in. If it's, they use a pretty wet mix of the concrete so that it mixes up well with the aggregate to make a soupy mix of concrete. And then now that would be 5,000 psi, which means that concrete is designed to hold 5,000 pounds per square inch when you're trying to break it. And they take samples. And the engineers, test the sample after 2 weeks to make sure that the 5,000 psi concrete has passed the engineering test. And I don't know if Lyle has a press. It's a thing with a big C piece of steel, and a pressure gauge. It could be this size, and it's sitting on top of a cylinder sample when they poured the concrete for that crane piece. Now, the rest of the structure may be 3,000 psi, but that sucker is holding a lot of stress. This is balance. This is a counterbalance, but still, there's a lot of factors where this may not be in perfect balance. So there's a strain on this, and you have, since this is 200 feet in the air, a little bit of pressure way up here is a lot of pressure on the foundation here, because you got it's like a lever. You can, a little bit of pressure here turns into a lot of pressure down there. So that's why they use a higher level of the psi, which means the aggregate has to be a real solid aggregate. It can't be loose stuff that they dig out of the ground. It has to be washed aggregate, and it has to be stones. Anyway, that's how they deal with that. Elon Musk. Oh yes, I just sold some more stock so I can do this Twitter thing. Oh boy, that's turning into a mess. Oh yeah, Marilyn's phone took forever to show up. Here I have evidence. You send I'm in this thing where you send your phone back, and so they send you a new phone, the iPhone 14, and then we got to send back the iPhone 13. And being the technology guy that I am, I want to make sure that I have the latest and greatest. And so the right here, iPhone 14, is a magical instrument. It deals with all the phone traffic and text messaging and all that, which is very important. And so that's the time thing, and that sucker is accurate. This is extremely accurate, and I can sync it with my watch, which is look around for that. This is fine. This is the receiver that went dead. Very interesting. That's the first time for that. This is the receiver. You see that? Got a little antenna. It's highly portable. Oops, turn it around to the camera. And you open these two doors, and there's some batteries. Well, they are now dead. So this thing popped out. That's why the audio went in. And we can bring over this fella. Sorry for the noise. Okay, how's that? All right. So instead of a handheld, I've got a boom mic, which is very sensitive, as you can tell. It can measure your breathing. Anyway, so I took the batteries out because they're shot. So here we need to fill that up with fresh batteries. I've got plenty of them, and I use those lithium. They're not rechargeable lithium. They're 7 times. See this Energizer. The autofocus isn't quite getting it. There it is. That's it. But it lasts 7 times longer than normal batteries. But, that receiver, I left it on one day. It was all done doing what I'm doing now. And I forgot to turn that one off. I turned this one off. This has got a pair of batteries in it also. Behind this little trap door. See? This is a transmitter. And it fits right on top of the microphone. Unscrew this. You gotta go all the way. There we go. See, there's the male end of that plug, and there's the female end of that plug. And you line up those little doodads. Nice and firm fit, so there's no wiggle. And then you screw this little ring. Screw it tight up against the microphone. So you have it's like a one-piece deal. It's gorgeous. This can come off. And it's a Shure microphone. That's H-U-R-E. It's a marvelous, microphone. It's not on now because my receiver ran out of juice. Boom, it just cut off. You'd think it would beep or something. No beeps. It just, okay, all of a sudden it is history. Wow. Okay, well, so it goes. Anyway, so when you send your phones back, I'll get a receipt. That's my tracking number of when I sent my iPhone 13 back to the prepaid label that, what do you call it? AT&T has, a place where they want you to send it to. So they give you a label. You put it back on the same box you got the new one in, put the old one in there and put the label on it, tape it up and take it to the post office. You get a tracking thing. And I put that, of course, that number that night into my trusty computer. And this is the latest update. And they have so it started off at a UPS station in Boca Raton, and it went to the Opelika distribution center, and then it got transferred to the Opelika agent for AT&T, tendered to returns agent at Opelika at 1:39 p.m. on September 26th. So I got proof because they send you a text message that says, you don't send the phone back, we're going to bill you $755. So this is an important little piece of paper to have. So there it is. That's, a zoomed in view of that, which is this. So they're done, the UPS post office, which I'm not I don't know, for packages, I like UPS because they give you, you can send high value packages and you can buy insurance for if you send back if you're sending in a lens or a camera. I went through a period of time where I was testing a lot of cameras and lenses. So I'd buy the camera, I'd test it out, I'd write a test report, and then I'd sell it to somebody. Then I'd sell the camera to someone on eBay that wanted that exact same camera. I tested it out, and I said, hey, this is better than buying it in a store because this is all tested out and works perfectly. You buy one out of a box, it may not work perfectly. So you can see I've done this often, and I'm upstanding citizen here in Boca Raton. So, it's better than buying one in a sealed box. Because you open it up and, hey, honey, it doesn't work. You got this wedding that you're trying to do. Kidding on that a little bit, but anyway, that's the advantage of buying a fully tested camera. So I had my label to make sure that phone got back. So UPS, you can't buy the insurance, like you can. You can't buy $25,000 worth of insurance with any carrier other than UPS. FedEx, same thing. I think you got a limit of $1,000 or $5,000. I forget. The limit's not enough because I had some high value stuff I was testing, and I needed $20,000 worth of insurance. UPS is the only one that you can pay for $20,000 worth of insurance. No, they make sure that package gets to where it's going. Or else they're going to write a $20,000 check, and they don't want to do that. Here's a picture of this guy catching his ball. There's the ball up in that corner right there. My microphone is in the way. Right there. That's the ball. Amazing photography. You get all these pixels. I mean, I have a camera behind there. It's 45 million pixels. Single frame reflex camera. But my iPhone, it's got a 40 million pixel camera. The main camera, this one right up here. 42 million, 40 million pixels, but they're little tiny pixels. My camera there is 45 million, but they're bigger pixels because the imager is 36 millimeters by 24 millimeters square. So they're fitting 45 million pixels in a bigger. I mean, the camera behind the lens in this is the size of your pinky fingernail, and they divided that up into 45 million little pieces. So you got a little tiny, a couple of microns per pixel. So you'll get better performance out of my big, 3 pound camera. But, you have this one in your pocket. And the best camera in the world is the one you actually have with you. There's no sense in having a really good camera on the file cabinet. All right, so here's, I got a picture of, look at all these people. That's unbelievable. Now that's Warren, Michigan. And I just happened to pop over to Warren, Michigan. Look at, I'll tell you, when now Michigan is like the bastion of the liberals, right? So he goes into the belly of the beast and says, hey, next week I'm going to have a rally. If you're interested, you go on this website and you can get a ticket. And look at all these people. There's 20 or 30,000 people. Every time he goes somewhere, he gets 20 or 30,000 people. This has got to be the most popular guy on the planet. So, and he travels all over the place. And I think he may have a rally tonight. We can look and find out. The Right Side Broadcasting Network. That is an independent organization that follows him around. Right Side meaning, you see this little. They got the same microphone in the picture I got over here. That's the Shure 55. Anyway, look at that. Now this is where Trump he's not there yet. He's just coming out of where the flags are here. And then he walks up this thing and gets on there. And he's like separated, he's elevated but separated from the. There he is. So you can see him. Now this is a big screen they have because it's hard to see this right here because he's there. which is on the screen, right there, and that's him right there. But when he goes somewhere, he packs them in. Let's try something. Let's close down this and see if I have a right side logo looking thing. I'll go one more panel over if I don't see it. I have one, so let's just see what the Apple operating system. Now, when you're in, any of these panels right here, if you're in basically in neutral. Let's see if I put it right here on the front page. This Fox Nation, which is a $70 a year subscription. So, there we go. Let's just pull this down. So you pull down from the middle. You pull down. There we go. And let's RIGHT. See, there's right side. Oh. So then, now I'm pulling up the right side network. And it says watch live. All right, let's see if there is anything live
out there. Well, some of the coffees have that terrible aftertaste.
There's our
some
pillow,
that leave
man.
me jittery, or I get an
He's
upset
selling
stomach.
pillows.
Well, my coffee
So they're
is
on a
different.
break, so
It's the richest, smoothest,
it's early
best
in the morning.
coffee I've ever
But
had.
it's
My
9:05
coffee comes in a variety of flavors.
morning,
You get
right?
them ground or whole bean.
I know,
Plus, it's
4:53.
certified organic and non-GMO. I guarantee it'll be
watch
the
on the
best
charger.
coffee you've ever
Yes, I
had.
know it's
So
from
go to mystore.com or call the number on your
yes,
screen.
25%.
Use your promo code and you'll
We'll
get
put it
my
in the
coffee
charger.
for 25%
The
off.
Pillow Man is
And I'm going to give you
selling
deep
coffee.
discounts on all my store products.
Yeah.
That's
We
mystore.com.
have,
It's my new
coffee.
platform for USA
You
entrepreneurs.
put the
Please order now.
RSBN code in there. All right, so let's go.
It was that same yearning for freedom that nearly 250 years ago gave birth to a special place called America. It was a small cluster of colonies caught between a great ocean and a vast wilderness. It was home to an incredible people with a revolutionary idea that they could rule themselves.
All right, let's get right side. Oops.
That they could chart.
I gotta close out of that. And then go to neutral and pull down and start that up again. All right, let's see what's going on here. I hear someone talking about Trump. Everyone's talking about Trump. Trump is back. Latest news. Let's see. Latest news. Look what we get. Miss Lake running for governor, maybe, in Arizona. Yeah, she's popular. Carrie, Kari Lake. You look here. Someone's holding Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake leads in Arizona governor race. She's probably the most attractive governor. She's very attractive, very well spoken. I mean, she is a polished. I don't know her background, but she sounds like. I think she actually was working for a TV station. So she was a popular TV broadcaster in the local market of Arizona. So she's well known because she's on TV for 10 years. I'm making that up. I don't know how many years. But if I remember right, she came out of a television station. So look at that. Latest poll, she's at 49-46. This one, 3 weeks ago, she was ahead by 14 points. Now she's ahead by 3. Now that's one poll. But I'd rather be ahead by 3 than behind by 10. So she's, replacing somebody. See. I'm just quick reading some of this stuff. We have a lot of concerns about Katie's campaign. Well, that's what they say when Kari Lake is beating you by 3, and you had a resounding lead not long ago. So, and Trump is in favor of the conservative, and she is very conservative. And there's a bigger picture of her with an arrow in her face. So she's good. Anyway, Trump is supporting her, which that never hurts, because he is, whether you like him or not, he is, he got, 70 million votes. That's the highest vote count of any incumbent ever in American history. Now, somehow or other, Biden, like 77 million. It's hard to believe that a guy can operate a campaign out of his basement and end up, and you see these rallies that Trump does, where he's got tens of thousands of people, and Biden has he tried to do a couple of these rallies, and 200 or 300 people would show up, and half of them are photographers. Trump does one and fills up the largest stadiums that whatever city has. He says, "Yeah, give me the biggest stadium you got. I'll fill it up." Oh boy, he hasn't done football stadiums. No, Obama did. I think in Colorado, he had a rally in the Colorado football stadium and filled the sucker. It was 84,000 seats, and he filled the entire stadium all the way up to the rafters in the back corner. I got a picture in the very back corner, and I have a picture from the very back corner. So you could barely see whoever was talking, because that's a long distance, to the middle of an arena. And Obama walked out like he was like Zeus. It was quite a scene. And this is like a week before the election. I said, "Marilyn, this guy can fill that stadium. He's going to be our next president. You just write it down." And and Obama had a resounding victory. It wasn't even close. But if you can fill an arena like that, you're going to be the next president. That's all I can say. Now, Trump fills all these arenas. And it turns out, with all the this and that, it turns out that Biden won by 12,000 votes out of 150 million votes. 70 for one guy and 77 for the other guy. So when you add it all up, it's 12,000 votes spread over several states. That's why they were really careful about, if there's any Mickey Mouse in the polling locations, because 12,000 votes is not a lot of votes. And, with all these polling locations, I volunteered as a poll worker 10 years ago, and I finally got selected about 6 years ago or 7 years ago. and did several elections. As a poll worker, I wanted to be inside, and I want to see how they do it, and see if it's if it's well backed up and secure. And I have the ability to look at what's going on, and I was capable of, and so I figured, you know what? Let's be an actual poll worker, POLL worker, as opposed to POLE worker. You don't want Jimmy swinging around, in a tight bathing suit on a pole. No, I was a POLL worker, and oh my God, the video of that just no, just scared off everyone that's listening here. Yeah, no, you don't want that. Anyway, so I signed up, got approved, got trained. You got to sign affidavits. They don't in Florida. They don't screw around. I was impressed, and from the poll standpoint, everything's copacetic. Now, my next poll worker job, I want to be where they assemble all the votes. Where they take the votes from now the precinct. I ran 2 precincts at the same time. I had a machine over here and a machine over here. And and we had the room kind of divided up so that all those people went into, got counted in this machine, and all, got counted in that machine. And I was in charge of making sure that the ballots got scanned in the right machine. And the person could see the scan going in. They could see, this number 100 went to 101, and for that machine, and this was 250, and it went to 251. So they could see that the ballot itself was counted, not the individual results. That got put into a little computer thing that's in the scanner, and then those results would then get compiled and sent. It would be put onto a thumb drive, in a locked, secure thing in the back of the terminal, the scanning terminal. And then at nighttime, you seal that thumb drive up in a bag, and then it gets carried each in its own separate bag, in a locked bag. I got an initial, where I was supposed to initial on the bag, certifying that I put it in the bag. You lock it in the bag. And then along with the ballots, you take these thumb drives, and it was two precincts, remember? And then you drive them, to a central location, at FAU campus, and you drive in the main gate of FAU and follow the signs. And it was over on the west side of the campus. The person that was in charge of the entire polling location said, "Jimmy, would you please come with me to the FAU?" I said, "Of course." This poor girl, she got, lady, she got elected to be, in charge of the entire poll. They call that person the clerk. That's the highest official position in a polling location, the clerk. Then you have the assistant clerk, if the polling location was large enough, and this one was large enough. So you have an assistant clerk, and then you got a clerk. And then you got I forget what they call me. You got people that read the licenses, and so if someone comes in, they give you a license, something that gets scanned and all that, and then they get a ballot. And then the ballot, they go over and fill out the ballot, circle in the candidates. And then I get, the scan. So I'm in charge of the scanning. There was a fancy name for that, and so I was one of those. So I was like third down, third in rank. Well, anyway, the clerk didn't show up. It's election day, right? Clerk doesn't show up. Just calls, I'm sick, my kid, this, whatever. I don't know what her excuse was. She had a serious reason because she wasn't there, and they communicated, with whoever she was supposed to communicate with. So all of a sudden, the gal that was supposed to be the assistant clerk becomes the clerk, which is different training, and we're all dealing with the same stuff. But she was, to me, a ballot is like $100 bill. Okay, you don't tear it up and throw it in the trash. If the ballot is defective in some way, they made a mistake on the ballot. So now we have a ballot, and this person has to go get a second ballot. Well, the second one is called a provisional ballot. So the voter hands in the mistake one. That gets marked, defective, or there was another word they used. And then he gets another ballot, which he can fill out. And instead of going in the scanner, it goes back to the clerk, and she puts it in a box with all the other provisional ballots, which mean the guy got 2 ballots, and this one has been marked defective, so it doesn't get counted in any way. And then the second ballot he got goes in a box called provisional. And they count them later. They collect all those and they count them when they get to the central office. It doesn't go in my machines because I think it's a provisional ballot. Anyway, so this girl she was tearing them up and throwing them away. And I said, so I go over to her, when I had a chance, because, it's kind of like waves of busyness. So I go over to her, her name is Kate or Kay or I don't know, something like that. So Kim, maybe it's Kim. So I go over to Kim and I say, what are you doing? I see you tearing up ballots and throwing them in the trash. And she said, yeah, I got like 10 or 12 of them. I said, you don't do that. You save them and put them in, the box that's next to the provisional ballots. Those are, that's like currency. You can't throw them away. They are counted. When you do all the counting, I said, don't throw away the trash. And they don't. They make you put a knot in it. And I said, well, they're going to dig all those out of the trash. Because when you count up everything, the ballot, because they're all counted, they're all serial numbered. I said, you're going to be short, the 15 or 20 ballots that you got that you threw away. You don't throw them away. It's I ran a teller station for a little tiny bit. I talked too much to the customers. They wouldn't let me. I was there for 2 or 3 weeks. I had the longest lines because I talked to the customers and the Barnett Bank a long time ago. So the branch manager said, Jimmy, you got the longest lines. The people would get out of the short lines and stand on my lines because they wanted someone to talk to. And all these other tellers were grouchy and they wouldn't talk, early in the morning. And I would talk and the people would get out of the short lines and get on my line because I was like Mr. Happy behind the teller line. Nice. So I taught them a lesson. So then they started teaching the Barnett tellers to be happy and talk to the customers. Gives you an opportunity to cross-sell other services, and you can refer them to, you need a cookie. I had a rubber stamp that I would stamp on the teller ticket. This is when I had a bank that it was, where I had some ownership with Phil Motter. So I had a rubber stamp that was round, and it said like, need a boat, need a car, So it was like 2 or 3 different things. You needed this, you need this, you need this. And of course, when you'd stamp the back of the ticket, the customer would take the ticket and look at it. It was like guaranteed. No one ever just took the teller receipt and stuffed it in there. They would look at it because I stamped it. It's just a rubber stamp. Need a loan, need a mortgage. Something like that. It was as simple as that. And the customer would always look at it. So, 3 or 4 people out of 100 that say, yeah, I'm getting ready to buy a new car. Do you do car loans? And I said, yeah, you call Andy, and his phone number is, let me have your information, and I'll have Andy call you. So now you got a lead. You got a potential loan, and you just did the rubber stamp thing. It worked because it wouldn't be 50% response, but it would be let's say 5 out of 100, but it'd be 0 out of 100 if you didn't bang the ticket with the rubber stamp. It was really. I used to, and I'd have all the tellers. I said, you bang the back of that thing with this rubber stamp, and if you don't do it, you're going to be pulled. You're not going to be working as a teller because I want you to do it, and we'll see. Let's see how it goes. And if they react to that, not exactly high pressure sales, right? Need a home, need a loan, and they'd say something. They said, you write down their information and, on a slip of paper, and you tell them the name and phone number of the guy that's, that does car loans or whatever kind of loans the guy wanted. And that's how we got a lot of loan business we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Now, this is Barnett Bank, and later on when Phil Motter and myself raised money from everybody that would give us money, then we went out and bought a bank, and we did. How cool is that? Okay, so Carrie Lake leads the Arizona gubernatorial race. That's of October 14th. You got, all these races tighten up, and people, when they really get serious about going to vote, and if their phone rings with a polling person, which I don't answer those calls, but, a lot of people do. From 4 to 8, I don't answer the phone, period. I see it, and, the number comes up and all that kind of stuff, and I can see it's a telemarketer. AT&T has a thing where it knows, if it knows, it tells you what kind of a call it is. And it could say, Robin, daughter in Washington, that call I take. Son in Virginia, yep, take that call. But telemarketer, no. That's the way it goes. All right, so here we are. I think it's time to say good night, good day. It's 9:27, 04, 05, 06 on a Saturday morning, and I think I'm going to go get myself a fresh cup of coffee and 5 oatmeal raisin cookies, baked fresh at the Publix Bakery. They're marvelous. If you like oatmeal raisin cookies, they really know how to do it. Chocolate chip cookies are outstanding too, but they're sweet. They have a lot of that's too sweet. I don't know if I'll probably get them. So if that's the case, if I had the chocolate chip ones, then I would have 1 chocolate chip and 4 oatmeal raisin, not the reverse. because to eat 5 of those chocolate chip cookies, I mean, it's too much sweet, too much chocolate. I got to watch my blood sugar. I watch it from a distance. I'm not a very good patient when it comes to my blood sugar. But the Apple Watch is supposed to manage your blood sugar levels. In like version 9 of the watch, which is next year. We'll see if they actually get that. They're testing it right now, and that oh God, what a thing that would be, huh? Where you could get your blood sugar. It tests your blood oxygen. So this is a non-invasive way. So instead of taking a blood sample and then it checks for blood sugar, when you have this little pin that pokes your skin, and then you take that little bead of blood and you stick it on a little piece of paper, and that little piece of paper, you shove that in a little device, and it tells your blood sugar, which is marvelous. 104, 110, 180, whatever you're doing. But you got to prick your finger, which So apparently, Apple has come up with a way of reading your blood sugar just by being really close on your skin. Now, this is technology they've been testing for several years, and every year it's going to be ready. I've been waiting like 4 years, and there's still no blood sugar. But there's a lot of pressure from people like Jimmy that tell Apple, "Come on, get out, get that blood sugar thing." The FDA has basically told companies like Apple, "All right, Apple, you do your own testing. You're big boys, and you need to make sure that the device that you're selling to the public, if you're saying that the blood sugar is accurate as a doctor actually doing a sample, and 99 times out of 100, it's the results are near identical to whatever blood test you could take, then you do your own testing, and don't make statements that you can't support, and will not regulate you other than this message. So we're not going to take the watch necessarily and test it ourselves against the population sample. We're going to leave all that up to you, because you're a big company, and if you don't comply with the rules, then we're gonna fine you, FINE, big time. So, of course, Apple takes that very seriously, and they make sure whatever statements they make, like, this is not a medical device, and this is not this, and this is not that. It says everything. But here's the results. And, you decide what to deal with it. But it's just an indication. It's not intended to supplement your doctor visit. I mean, they have like statements like that. That's all bundled up in this little tiny package. But they're careful to explain themselves very carefully on how accurate this thing is and whether it's actually a medical device. And it takes your pulse. I mean, the doctor has the thing on my arm, and I look at my watch and I say, "Well, my pulse is 66. What do you get?" And she's listening, and then she multiplies by 10 and all. Yeah, so pretty primitive. I had my watch on. I said, "Sweetie, it's my pulse is 66." Oh God! Anyway, the watch is amazing. It saved my fanny because the alarm went off when I was having chest pains, and they were just very. So Marilyn's on the patio door outside, and talking to her sister in Fort Myers. I'm on the couch watching the news. It's about 10 minutes into the 6 o'clock news. Brett Bear is giving me the news, and it wasn't anything exciting. I mean, I didn't like get upset, but I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden, I feel these pains in not a good place. All around the heart, and I'm feeling they're coming down my arm. All the signs say, Jimmy, get to the goddamn hospital. So Marilyn, we're going to the hospital. So I'm running around through the house with a bag, and I'm putting in all my electronic devices and my chargers, so I don't, miss a thing, and my headphones. Oh, jeez. I get to the hospital because I figure I'm going to be there a while. And yep, they did a blood test. They said, Jimmy, you had a heart attack. I said, oh boy. So, everyone's got, Jimmy's in the hospital. And this was 3 years ago. So I'm 74 years old, which, that's an age you can die with a heart attack. So I felt a little something there. I mean, it wasn't one of these, with so much pain I fell to the floor, in the natal position. No. I was sitting on the couch watching the news. All of a sudden, a little stretch right here. I figured, God, this something doesn't feel right. I look at my watch, and it says 150 over 200 over 150. I said, oh, crap, My pulse was like 180 beats a minute, 150 beats a minute. And I'm sitting on the couch. It's not like I was running around, the stadium. So that's too high sitting on a couch. So, Marilyn, we need to go. So that was it. We got in the car and drove to the house. It took 5 minutes. We live, 2 miles away from the hospital, fortunately. So I went right in emergency. I said, Marilyn, just drive right up in emergency like an ambulance and let me out. And, I'll hold my heart, a little, because I wanted a wheelchair and I wanted to get immediately into a bedroom or whatever, emergency bed, so they could do the pulmonary test before they admit me. That's how they do it. So I went into room 13, and I met Dr. Ordonez, who is my cardiologist. And he said, yeah, Jimmy had a heart attack. So tomorrow, it was probably Sunday. No, I was watching the news, so that was probably Friday or so. So the next day, Ordonez knocks me out and sticks the thing in my, and goes up into my blood veins and all this kind of stuff. And he's ready to maybe drop a couple of stents in there. He says, no, this needs bypass surgery. And that is very serious surgery. You don't realize. So I'm a survivor of quadruple bypass. And you look at it that way because a lot of patients don't survive. I mean, what they do, they freeze the heart, they stop the heart. They don't stop it, but they freeze it. They put a pad or something under there that's like 40 degrees, and the heart, just really drops way down. And they got a little heart pump machine to support the blood flow because, we don't want Jimmy's brain to die off. God forbid, So they're circulating the blood, with a machine temporarily while they're doing a bypass. Then they bring the patient, not to consciousness, but they bring the temperature of the heart up so it could pump on its own. And then they watch the bypass to see if they've got the arteries stitched up okay, which to me is magical how they could stitch up a blood vein. But, they do it. They match them up. And they cut out the bad piece and put, it's like a bad piece of hose. and they put in a new piece of hose, and the hose is about the gauge of this wire I'm holding right here, which is plugged into my yeah, that's the gauge of the artery. Now, how the heck do you sew that? I don't know. I've seen these surgeries on videos, and it's artistic how these doctors, the steady hands that they have. Now that they need to get that. They need to have robotics do that because that requires such steadiness and all that. You might as well have, train a robot because it doesn't get nervous. you know, you don't want that happening when he's doing my artery. Yeah, well, quadruple bypass is Ordonez told me, he says, it's an operation where you don't necessarily survive. I said, well, we want to make sure we try to do the best job we can, right? Dr. Ordonez, we don't want Jimmy to be gone. Yeah. So you go to sleep on the operation and you never wake up. You end up dead. And you got the family all crying in the lobby. We don't want to do that, right? I got too much stuff to do. I'm not ready to go to the graveyard or wherever. Anyway, so that's how the heart attack happened. It was. They said it was very fortunate that we got there so quickly. Meaning because most people, they just figure, muscular thing, and stretch out a little bit, and what are these sensations you get in your chest? They'll kind of like go away. Well, the Apple Watch saved me because I could have very well done that, but my watch, I looked at my watch, and it was buzzing. An alarm went off in my watch, and it says, "Jimmy, your pulse is 150, and you're sitting on the couch." That's not the right combination. If your pulse is 150, then you need to be running like crazy around the stadium. But you're not. You're watching the news on the couch, and you weren't exercising before you started watching the news. So you're basically sedentary, and your heart's at 150 BPM. So something is not working right with the circulatory system, and the heart is beating very fast because the blood is not, circulating in your system right. So that's why you feel chest pains. But they were not the kind. Now, if I waited longer, then I would have fallen to the floor with my hand on my heart and say, honey, I think we should have gone, to the hospital an hour ago or 2 hours ago. So in the meantime, if you wait and you don't detect this early enough, and you just figure, oh my God, I had a lot of stress during the day, and I'm all, red in the face and everything. No, but I know the 8, 9, or 10 signals of potential heart attack, and redness in the face and top of your chest. 120, 130, 150 pulse when you're sitting on the couch. That's not good. Something is not working right with my arteries and my heart. So let's go to the hospital, let them figure it out. I'm not taking a chance. And they said, this is post-specto. I survived the quadruple bypass, which is, not an automatic thing. The mortality rate is rather high with bypass surgery. It's not like 3 out of 100. It's a bigger number. So watch out for the early signs of heart attack. Anyway, they told me that since we got there very soon, and they put me on a heparin drip, and they put me on a nitroglycerin drip, in your IV thingy. After they took the blood test and said, yeah, you had a heart attack. And everything settled down. And the nitroglycerin drip opens up all the arteries so that, the blood will circulate a lot easier through your whole system. You've heard of a nitroglycerin pill. You take that pill, and the nitroglycerin gets in your system, and all your arteries open up. That's one of the reasons why the heart attack patients keep a nitroglycerin pill, in their pocket at all times. So if they feel this, and their pulse goes way up, and all these kinds of signs, you just suck on a nitroglycerin pill, and that'll open up all the arteries. It's not something you can take all the time. It's a temporary fix, I'm told. And the heparin is an anticoagulant, to make sure your blood is not going to clot. So that's what the heparin does. So those two drips, and I'm sitting and laying in the bed just fine, trying to entertain my wife. She's sitting next to me. Sweet thing. She's right there with me every second of the way. And I'll tell you what, as a patient, and it's the first time I've ever been in a hospital as a patient. I've been in a hospital many times with visiting people that are patients, but I've never actually had an IV put in me, So I can tell you, as a patient, I felt really good having Marilyn because you're in there, they're giving you medication, you fall asleep, then you wake up, and then you kind of fall asleep, and then you wake up, and occasionally. And Marilyn was right there. Every time I wake up, she'd be right there. Oh God, so sweet. The same way, she's been in the hospital, and I stay right there with her. You have to, we've been, at that point we were married 38 years or something. When you live with someone for 38 years, since she was 27, and now since I was like 33 or something, met her, at Royal Trust Bank, and we met in the training session thing. So at the end of the training, everybody got together. It was a big cocktail hour and so forth. And, I was a local guy, so I didn't have to get on an airplane, but they flew in people from all over the state. And they were all taking off at different airports at different times. And the party kept contracting because people kept on taking off, because it was a 1 week training thing at a hotel, in Miami. And, then the group kept getting smaller and smaller, and I'm sitting over here, table of 4, and I've got this 3 of us sitting, there's 4 of us sitting around a table and a 5-seat table, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. And she, Marilyn came in because her group had to go take off to Jacksonville or something like that. So Marilyn slides over because she's a local. And, hey, Marilyn, how you doing? And I recognized her, but I didn't know. I never got introduced to her. It's the first time I got introduced. And that's how I met Marilyn. She knew Tony Romeo, who I worked with at Royal Trust. She'd come over from the Tower building over to our building because Jerry Gilliam, the chairman, was down the hall right in front of me, and I'd see her going back and forth. But I never, I wasn't interested in, dating or anything. So I had no interest to run up there and introduce myself. It's just very attractive, stunning, attractive person at Royal Trust Bank. I can tell you, everybody, when she walks in a room, the heads turn. Boys and girls, because the girls would be looking at her because of the way she's dressed, and the boys would be looking around, trying to figure it out. Oh God! But she was, whew, she was any room that we would walk in and out of, a restaurant or whatever, that you could see the heads turning when we would go by, and they weren't looking at me. I guarantee you that. Oh Lordy, woo! But aside from that, she's a stunning partner to live with for now 42 years, since 1980, since February of 1980. We've been in the same place at the same time, all the time. And, we get home from work, and as long as we're in the same place at the same time, we don't have to do it, go out anywhere. The fact that we're in the same place is good enough, But I mean, we go out, we have dinner with other people and this and that, but we're perfectly comfortable just watching movies and so forth on Netflix and this and that. We don't have to actually go to the theater. I pay. We buy a lot of rentals. 24-hour rentals. So you watch the movie, you pay $3.99, and you don't have to buy popcorn and soda, and you don't have to get in the car and go somewhere else to the movie theater. Now, we went to the movie theater to see Top Gun. Oh, my God, what a movie. I'm going to go back. I want to go back and see that movie again. Because it's stunning. And that's the kind of a movie you want to see in the theater because of the acoustics. Those jet engines. Oh, God. Here's the seats. You can feel the seat shaking from the sound system. I mean, literally, the cushions are moving because of the sound pressure of what's going on with the audio system in a modern theater. So go watch Top Gun. It'll wake you up. I don't care who you are. Even if you don't care about pilots and all that stuff, you just need to see that movie because it's so well done. And he does such a magnificent job. And, the illusion of him being a pilot, which he's not, but you think he's Top Gun. and it is just one big illusion. And that's what the movie industry does. They want to throw you in that illusion, and they have to make it very believable, or else complicated. We're complex, computing systems, and if they don't have every detail really tied down well, I'm not gonna believe it. And then if you don't believe it, then the movie's a failure, and I'm gonna say, it's a movie that you're gonna. But I came out of that theater and said, "Oh, woo!" It blows your socks off. I mean, when you walk out of the theater, you're taking a deep breath and say, "Holy crap! What was?" Ooh, I think my eyes was closed through half of it. I think I need to go back and see it again. With my eyes open. Oh, jeez, it was unbelievable. And, the movie that he made 30 years ago, they blended that in because they had like pictures, pictures on bulletin boards, of, in the hangars. They had pictures of, scenes in the other movie. So they didn't, go back and forth between one movie and the other. They showed you pictures up here of the pilots and the dating and all that kind of stuff that was going on in the first version of his love thingy in the first version. So they had pictures of things around there of all the different people, and Not all of them, just some of them. And they didn't shove it in your face, but you could see. It was, I mean, that's how they tied them together. It was really beautifully done, you know, from that standpoint. Okay. Holy mackerel. All right, so I've been yapping here for 2 hours and 5 minutes and 5 seconds. It's time to go. So you all have a great weekend, and I'm going to go get me some oatmeal raisin cookies and a fresh cup of coffee because this is not a thermos thing, but it's still it's turned cold. So have a great day, and we'll see you probably Monday morning. All right. So have a good weekend if you're still here. All right. Bye bye.